What if we can positively impact society by reshaping the mindsets of young men? And while we're at it, let me ask you, what does it mean to be a man? My name is Dennis Meralda, a father, a teacher, a coach, a mentor, and a principal with over 2 decades of experience shaping the minds and characters of young men across the United States. If these questions resonate, if you're a young man looking to improve your life or a parent looking for tools to help your son become the best version of himself, the Building Men podcast was created for you. What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Building Men podcast, or welcome back if you are a longtime listener of the show. We are on to episode something like 213 or 214. We're coming up on our 4-year anniversary of the Building Men podcast. Really proud of that. The beginning episodes of Building Men were solo podcasts that I did in the 14 or 15 different locations. Turned into some interviews. It turned into interviews in a studio. So we've gone through several iterations of the Building Men podcast. Back today to do another solo podcast. And if you listen to our last episode, you know that solo casts are not my favorite thing to do. They make me a little bit anxious, uncomfortable, but we all know the importance of leaning into uncomfortable situations and intentional discomfort. So I'm doing another solo podcast today. Today's episode, we're going to talk about some parenting strategies. I'm going to give you a top 10 list when you're a parent and you're dealing with adolescent or teenage kids, boys or girls. Obviously, Building Men, we focus more on the boys, but these are strategies that you can use with boys and or girls. And as a parent of 3, I have a son who's 19 years old, a daughter who's 16, and a daughter who's 13, will be 14 any day now. And Julie's kids are going to be 21 and 19 years old, respectively. So 5 kids that are all in those teenage into early 20-year-old timeframes. So I have some experience. In addition to that, I was a teacher for several years. So if you're a listener on the podcast, you know that I was also a teacher, a coach, and a principal for almost 20 years with all of that said and done. So I have some experience in working with teenage kids, adolescent kids, and giving advice to parents. To learn more about our programs, including one-on-one mentorship coaching, the foundation, our Building Men online group community for young men, or to bring a Building Men experience to your school, check out our website, buildingmen.io, or click the links in the bio. Now, back to the show. So I'm going to do this as I'm going to talk about the 10 different pieces of advice that I would have for parents. And for each one, I'll talk about why it's important and then 1 or 2 ways to actually implement that. So once you hear the information, the so what, how do I go about doing it? I'll give you some practical ways to implement. So number 1, strategy is to model emotional intelligence for your kids. Why is that important? Modeling emotional intelligence. One, anything that we talk about, its lessons are caught and not taught. So the more that you could model things for your kids, the more that they see you doing it, there's more of a roadmap for them to find their way to success. Instead of you just telling them what to do and them having to find it out on their own or to go through those trials and tribulations, if you're able to model it for them, they could see it in action. So modeling that emotional intelligence helps young men and or young women manage their own emotions, understand others on a deeper level. It leads to healthier relationships and better mental health for themselves as well. So how do you go about implementing that? I would suggest naming emotions. As especially for young men, it's like their feelings are either boredom, anger, or joy, right? It's like those 3 things. So how do you normalize them talking about their emotions? Like it's them naming them, right? I'm feeling frustrated. Well, what does frustration feel like? Or I'm feeling frustrated now because I have a lot of work to do. It might be I'm feeling upset because Sasha just broke up with me, whatever it is. And then what you do is you help them develop healthy coping mechanisms, demonstrate how you manage stress yourself, such as, meditation, through exercise, through getting outside, through journaling. It might be empathy mapping. And what I mean by that is, how do you, how might another person handle a similar type situation? You might be watching a movie and pause it and say, how do you think that character felt when this happened? We're just watching Hunger Games with the kids the other day. So there's an opportunity to pause and say, how do you think the younger sister felt when Katniss volunteered to be the tribute? Something along those lines. So when there's an opportunity to call out a behavior or call out an emotion that you see in another person, that will help a kid, especially a boy, try to emulate it as well. Number two is to encourage open communication. I know as an adult male, this is something that I often struggle with. So for young men, young women, this is also something that they might struggle with as well. Why is it important? Open communication fosters trust, and it ensures that your child, your son, your daughter feels supported, especially in challenging situations. So how do you implement that? Could be family meetings. You get together every night at the dinner table and you have everyone share their thoughts about a specific topic and how they're feeling. Practicing active listening. One, yourself actively listening. So put the damn phone down when your kid is talking to you about something important, or if the game is on, it can wait, hit pause, like invest in those conversations with your kids. And then using that modeling. It sounds like you had a really tough day today because you think you didn't do well on that test. Tell me more about it. Right. And like invest in that moment with your kids and creating more of a non-judgmental space. Assure your son, your daughter, they can talk to you about anything without that fear of punishment or judgment. Right? It's not easy for us to do, especially if it's something that we get a little annoyed by. But give them that space to talk to you in an open way, and you'll definitely reap the benefits of it. As your kids get older, they'll be more open and more willing to talk to you about those difficult things as well. Number three is to promote responsibility and accountability. Why is this important? I mean, here's the thing: responsibility teaches self-discipline, and it basically like prepares young men and young women for their adult life. I mean, life is about responsibilities. We all have them, right? So what can we do to help young men, young women understand the importance of responsibility and accountability? How do you implement it? I mean, having your kids do chores is a huge part. And I also believe in chores without the allowance piece. Maybe there is something that you compensate them for going above and beyond, but in my opinion, you have a family structure and your family is a team, and their job as a member of that team is to unload the dishwasher and take out the garbage and mow the lawn or whatever it is. So have conversations with your kids about the importance of accountability and responsibility, and it will also help not raising little a-holes in the future. They're tied to the responsibility and accountability. There should be natural consequences. So when they do something, they mess up, there's a consequence that goes along with that action. The more that you let things slide, the more I like to call it aggressive negotiations with kids, especially teenagers. They'll figure out where the line is. They'll go up to the line. They'll put their little pinky toe beyond the line and they'll see if you move the line. So, as parents, can you hold that line and implement or render consequences if the kids are not living up to the expectation or being responsible or accountable for their actions? And then, as a parent, consistency is key here. Follow up on the responsibilities. It's more work on you as a parent, yes, but that's life. You have kids. So, if it's making sure that they are doing the dishes, taking out the garbage, vacuuming, whatever the chores or responsibilities are you following up on it? So did you check to make sure that they cleaned their room or they took out the garbage or whatever it is? Again, more on you as a parent, but the more that you put in the time and effort up front to do that, the more likely they're going to take ownership and onus over whatever that responsibility, so it'll be less work for you in the future as well. The next one, number 4, is to foster a growth mindset with your kids. Why is this important? I'm a huge fan of Carol Dweck, who wrote the book Mindset. Of all the educational authors that I've read, this is one of the most important books. If you haven't read the book Mindset by Carol Dweck, pick it up, read it. It is so applicable to us as parents. A growth mindset helps young men and young women view challenges as opportunities for growth rather than obstacles that stand in their path. And how do you implement it? One of the biggest keys, and if you take nothing else from this conversation today, as a parent, praise effort and not the outcome or not the identity with everything across the board. Whenever you can praise the hard work. So if your kid hits a home run in the baseball game, it's not, oh, you're the greatest baseball player in the entire world, or you're the greatest quarterback in the history of the high school. It's, wow, you worked really, really hard and your hard work resulted in the outcome that you wanted for yourself. The other thing that does is it detaches. They're looking for your approval for whatever it is. Like, I remember for myself growing up, whatever I did when I was playing baseball, good or bad, after the pitch was thrown, after I took a swing, my first thought immediately was, is my father going to be happy with me, or is he going to be pissed off at me? So I lived in this box of worry and fear around my father's reaction. So it was all about, was I good enough in his eyes? There was never praise over the effort. It was always about the outcome. So as a parent, if you could just change that one little thing, praise the effort your kids are giving rather than the outcome of whatever the results or the identity. So instead of, you're so smart, you got a good grade on that test because you worked your ass off studying and doing note cards, and you've gotten enough sleep, and that's why you were able to see the results that you wanted. It's a small shift, but it's a huge impact for your kids in the future. It also teaches resilience. So as you're thinking about mindset and praising the effort, when you share stories with your kids, share stories of resilience with them. The only other thing I recommend to parents, as a quick aside, is don't just tell your kids the stories of the time that you hit the game-winning home run, made the game-winning shot, tackled the guy for a loss, got the cheerleader, won the championship. Talk to your kids about the stories that you didn't find success, but you still were able to persevere and use that level of resiliency to find success in the future. That's going to serve them better than putting you up on a pedestal thinking that is the greatest baseball player or whatever in the history of the world, because they might not be able to live up to that ideal that you're setting for them. But if you talk to them about the time that you struggled, you fell down, and you know what? You got back up again. That will do so much more to impact your kids' growth in the future than you just sharing the stories of the wins. And then helping them set smart, like, goals for themselves as well. Realistic, incremental goals that they can set for themselves, and then celebrate little successes along the way, right? Not just the final game, like the little wins that they have. How do they feel at the end of the game after all the hard work that they put in? Number 5 is instill an idea of empathy and compassion. Talk to your kids about what it means to be empathic, and what it means to be a compassionate person. Why is that important? Empathy leads to better relationships and deeper understanding of others. And for young men and women, if they can't understand what's going on with themselves, and that if they don't have a good relationship with themselves, how could they possibly have a good relationship with another human being? Life, one of the big things in life, it's about relationships, right? We know this. If we fast forward our life and we think about ourselves on our deathbed, it's not about making another dollar. It's not about spending another hour at work. It's about the relationships that we have with other human beings. Make sure you're talking to your kids about the importance of relationships. So how do we implement it? We could do something where could be volunteering together with your kids, doing something with the community. There's a group of homeless individuals that they kind of patrol an area about 10 miles from my home, And I go there with my kids frequently. I'll not only, give the guys socks or underwear or t-shirts or bring them food. I talk to the guys as well. So my kids see me treating people that are less fortunate as human beings rather than these disgusting scumbags that are on the corner, right? We see a lot of that in the world. So they fell on hard times, but I want my kids to see me talking to them like they are actual human beings, and there might be something that I can do in the future to help those people out as well. We want to discuss current events with our kids. So how do we think about empathy and compassion? Discuss things that are going on in the world and talk to the kid or your kids about how do they feel about that. It could be in a movie, it could be in a television show, but talk to them about the characters that they're watching or a current event that they're watching on television, and how does that make them feel, and how might it be to walk in that person's shoes for a mile. And then if you have younger kids, you can go into a role playing type scenario with them where you're taking on different roles in that situation. Another strategy, number 6, is to support healthy risk taking. The younger a child is, the more they're able to deal with taking a risk, right? If I'm 47 years old, it's harder for me to risk something either with my profession or financially than it is if I'm 16, 17, 18 years old. So that's a huge piece. And what we also want to do is we want to talk to our kids about why it's important to do those things, because you're building confidence. We're trying new experiences. We're learning something. We're trying to overcome some kind of a challenge that's in our path. How do we implement that? We encourage new activities. It could be a new sport. It could be a new club after school, a social activity. And then we also debrief those experiences with our children. So afterwards, instead of just they come in and they go right to the room, tell me 3 things that you learned today. Or what was the best part of that new experience? Or if you were to do it again, would you do anything differently? And then you could even incorporate some type of a risk assessment with your kids. So before they engage in that activity, okay, let's talk about the positives and the negatives associated with that activity as well. So the next thing that we're going to talk about, number 7, is to teach respect and consent. Consent is a huge, huge word. So if I'm raising 2 teenage girls, I'm going to talk to them about consent. I'm also going to talk to my son about consent, right? It's a huge thing that they're going to be dealing with in their future. So talk to them about boundaries, talk to them about respecting other people's boundaries as well. Why is it important? It's a fundamental necessity for a healthy relationship. Kids need to learn to respect other people's boundaries, but they also need to learn how to set boundaries as well. How do we implement it is through clear conversations with our kids, talk to them about what it means to you, and then have them share with you what it means to them. We want to model respectful behavior. How do we interact in a respectful way? We want to teach our kids how to talk and act with kindness. And more than anything, we want to teach them how to set boundaries. How do we go about setting a boundary? And remember, a boundary is set for ourselves. We're making a promise to ourselves. We're not setting boundaries for other people. Number 8 on the list is to encourage physical activity and healthy living. Again, this is a modeling piece. If your kids see you laying on the couch all day and not doing anything active, if they see you having a horrible diet as far as your nutrition is concerned, if they see you consuming a ton of alcohol, if they see you being very sedentary, they're more likely to go in that direction as well. So you need to get up, get moving, get outside, do the things, drinking water with your kids, modeling the importance of healthy nutrition for them as well. Again, what they're seeing, it's like the lessons are caught and not taught. Why is this important? Because physical and mental health support a lifestyle that you want to grow old with, right? And the younger the kids can learn this, the better they are off in the future. So how do we implement that? It could be family activities, regular hikes, regular bike rides, playing outside, sports. Let's go for a walk after dinner every single night. Those types of things. If you are worried about your kids' diets, well, don't have ho-hos and ding-dongs in the cabinet, right? Like, what are the things that you are purchasing to put into the pantry so your kids have access to it? And again, having conversations with your kids as well. Take your kids to the grocery store and involve them in that conversation. Let's talk about reading a nutritional label on the back of whatever the container is that we're about to purchase. Let's try making a healthy version of whatever meal we're about to have. So those are a couple things that we're going to do as far as like health, physical activity, and nutrition. And then also talking to your kids about sleep hygiene, the importance of getting at least 8 hours of sleep every single night. There's more benefits to getting those 8 hours of sleep. And what happens with high school kids today is they're up on their phones really, really late. They're not getting enough sleep. They might be studying, they might be just playing video games or doing whatever, and then they get up early in the morning to get to school. So they're constantly chasing it in regards to sleep. So what can you do to model that behavior for your kids? Is yourself get to bed at a healthy bedtime. Have conversations with your kids about a healthy bedtime as well. Number 9 is we want to nurture independence while providing guidance. And I'll call back to taking a risk. Like we want our kids to do dangerous things in a careful manner, right? We want to, like, I'll say to my kids, be smart if you're doing stupid things, or be smart when you're doing stupid things. I want them to understand they're going to make mistakes. It's part of growing up. We want to nurture the idea of independence, make your own decisions, but I'm there to be your safety net or your guide along the way. Why it's important is because the independence builds self reliance, decision making skills, self discipline. These are all things that we want to be able to teach our kids. How do we implement it? So we start scaffolding. What I mean by that is like you're building new opportunities and new ways for your kids to make decisions. So it's like an I do, we do, you do approach with kids. So I'm going to make a decision and I'm going to talk to my kids about what are the ramifications of this decision that I make. And the next time I'm going to let them make the decision with me being there to support them. Right. So they feel like they have that level of autonomy. And we know autonomy is a huge need for kids, to feel like their voice is a part of the space. Give them choices in their daily life. Would you want to do your homework before or after dinner? What would you prefer? Do you want to? Here are the 3 choices of chores that you have. You can pick whichever one you want to do, but it has to be done by Friday afternoon or whatever it is. But give them that level where they feel their voice is a part of the space. We want to support but not rescue them. We want your child to be able to fall down, take a look at what's going on in their life, make an adjustment, and then figure out a way to be resilient and pull themselves back up from that difficult or challenging situation. I did a post about it not too long ago. It's like, be a lighthouse for your kids, right? You don't want to get in the boat and steer the boat for your kids, but understanding that they might be dealing with some treacherous water, some treacherous type situations that are out there. But if you're a lighthouse for your kids, you're there, you're solid, you are not you're not a movable object. You will always be there, but you're not going to drive the boat for them or steer the ship for them. You're going to shine the light on potentially dangerous situations and potentially a path for them to go in the future. And you're there to support if they need, but it's their job to steer their own ship. So be a lighthouse for your kids. And then the next one is to provide some type of mentorship. Guide your child, your son, your daughter through the larger decisions in their life by being that mentor, by being that guide. This might be an opportunity for you to share stories that you have gone through in the past that you've learned the lesson from. Will give your child a chance to see through your eyes a little bit. And then you're able to discuss the pros and cons of the decision that you made. And finally, number 9 is highlight the importance of being a lifelong learner and highlight the importance of personal growth and development. Why is that important? Being a lifelong learner fosters adaptability, it fosters personal growth. It gives your kids an opportunity to understand that just because they're in a certain situation right now, it's not the be all end all. They have an opportunity to learn, to grow, to get better in the future. How do we implement that? We want to really talk about the importance of them being curious, especially kids have a computer in their hands most of the time that can give them information about anything they've ever wanted to learn in the history of the world. Encourage them to use that as a tool to ask questions, to explore, to find out, to learn new things. And even for you, like, hey, I want to learn how to speak Spanish this summer. Who's on board with me? Let's do this together. I want to learn how to do fill in the blank, and let your kids be a part of that exploration so they can see you again, you modeling for them the importance of being a lifelong learner. It might be a new hobby, it might be some kind of a skill that you want to do, or maybe as a family you're going to learn how to do something together as well. And then you want to celebrate the learning. Again, we want to find these little moments to celebrate learning opportunities for your kids. I'm going to throw in two more bonus ideas around things that you could do as a parent to help your kid out. One is to delay gratification. So, if like one thing that I could tell parents, especially of young men, is like teach them the importance of delayed gratification. So before you get the dessert, you got to eat the vegetables. Before you go out to play, you got to get the chore done. Whatever it is, so they know they need to go through that difficult thing first. Again, teaching resiliency before they get the reward of it, whatever that may be. That goes along with embracing the suck, understanding there's going to be sucky things that come along in their life. Embrace it, understand that it's not forever. This is the time here is, you have to go through it for a little bit of time, but you'll reap the benefits or the rewards on the other side. And then finally, I'll talk about the power of yet. This is a recall back to the Carol Dweck mindset, the idea of growth mindset. If they're struggling with something, if you ever hear your kids say, I can't or I don't, have them say yet at the end. I I can't hit a curveball. You can't hit a curveball yet. Um, I can't, or I'm not successful in math. I suck in math, or I'm not good. If you have them add in the word yet at the end, it's this idea for themselves like, all right, I might struggle with this now, but it's not a forever type thing. So I can't juggle yet. I can't dunk yet. When they add that in there, it's this idea of growth mindset that they can accomplish anything they put their mind to. They just have to keep going through it. All right, so that's what I have for you today. What did I miss? Shoot me an email, buildingmencoach@gmail.com. If there's anything that you think I should add to that list, I'll follow up with part 2 around what we can do with our kids over the summer to help them have a good experience, and also to make sure that they're not driving us absolutely crazy. They say the average amount of time that passes before parents want their kids to go back to school is about 13 days. So what can you do as a parent to help yourself, your mental health, and then also provide opportunities for your kids as well? And then we'll do one at the end of the summer around getting your kid ready for the start of the next school year. If you haven't done so already, please rate the Building Men podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and then type in a couple words, a review of the podcast. It helps get the message out to more people. And then share this out with anyone that you think might benefit from the Building Men message. Follow us on Instagram, building.men. And the website is buildingmen.io. If there's anything that I could ever do to support you, to support a young man in your life, please do not hesitate to reach out. And as always, go one step further than you thought you could go. We'll see you next time on Building Men.